Have you ever really stopped and thought about the journey your food takes to get to your plate? I mean, it's pretty incredible when you break it down. Today we're going to do just that. We're going to follow the path from a tiny little seed all the way to your supper and uncover what's basically the playbook for modern agriculture. So, let's jump right in.
Okay, so let's start with this question. How does one single grain of wheat, something you could literally just hold on your fingertip, begin its journey to become the bread that's sitting on your table? Well, the answer is this amazing story of science, a whole lot of hard work, and, like I said, what we're going to call the farmer's playbook.
So it all begins with a promise locked inside a single seed. But what's the difference between just any old plant and a crop? You know, something that can feed millions of people?
It really all comes down to one thing: scale. See, if you've got a few wheat plants in your backyard, that's a garden. It's lovely. But when farmers cultivate that exact same plant across a massive field, that's when it becomes a crop. And it's that sheer scale that makes feeding the entire planet even remotely possible.
You know, farming is all about timing and seasons. You can't just plant whatever, whenever. In a huge country like India, for example, crops are split into two main groups based on when they're sown. First, you've got the Kharif crops. These are the monsoon crops sown in the rainy season. Think stuff like rice, maize, and cotton. Then you have the Rabi crops, or winter crops, which are planted when things cool down. We're talking about wheat, peas, and mustard here.
Okay, so to manage all of this, farmers follow a kind of playbook. It's a set of 7 absolutely essential steps that guide the entire journey, from a sleepy little seed to a massive harvest. So let's dive into the very first play, building the perfect home for that seed.
All right, so step 1 of the playbook, and you might find this surprising, it isn't actually planting the seed. Nope, it's preparing its home. Because you can't just toss a seed on the ground and hope for the best, right? You've got to create an environment where it can really, truly thrive. And that's where tilling, or plowing, comes in. By turning and loosening up the soil, farmers give the young roots a chance to breathe and stretch out deep into the earth. I love this analogy. Think of it like fluffing your pillow before you go to sleep. It just makes everything cozier and more comfortable for the seed.
And man, this right here really shows you how much farming has changed over the years. For centuries, this job was done with a simple plow pulled by animals. It was slow, back-breaking work. But today, a tractor-driven cultivator does the exact same thing, but it saves an absolutely incredible amount of time and labor. A total game changer.
Okay, the soil is all prepped and ready to go. Now we're on to step 2, sowing. And this is all about choosing the right seeds. Check out this cool little observation from our source material. A kid sees their mom put some seeds in a bowl of water and notices that some of them start to float. What do you think is going on there?
It's actually a super clever, totally low-tech quality control test. See, healthy seeds are dense, so they sink. But damaged seeds, they're hollow and lighter, so they float right on top. This simple little trick is a traditional way farmers have separated the good seeds from the bad ones for ages, giving them a much, much better shot at a healthy crop.
All right, our good, healthy seeds are in the ground. But just like any living thing, they're going to get hungry and thirsty pretty quick. And that brings us to the next 2 big steps in our playbook: feeding and watering the crop. So, step 3 is all about food. And farmers have 2 main options here. On one hand, you've got fertilizers. These are man-made in factories, and they're packed with specific nutrients, like nitrogen and phosphorus. On the other hand, there's manure, which is all natural, just decomposed organic waste. Now, it's not as jam-packed with nutrients, but it's amazing for the soil's health because it provides something called humus, which is basically the good stuff that helps soil hold water and stay healthy, something fertilizers just don't do.
And then, of course, step 4 is watering. That's irrigation. Pretty simple, right? It's just supplying water to the crops at regular intervals. And it's absolutely crucial, not just to get the seed to sprout, but also to help carry all those nutrients we just talked about to every part of the plant.
And just like with plowing, the way we do irrigation has changed a lot. The traditional ways were cheaper, for sure, but you can imagine they weren't very efficient with water. But check out modern systems like drip irrigation. It delivers water literally drop by drop right to the base of the plant. In places where water is scarce, this technology isn't just helpful, it's a total game changer.
Okay, so our little plant is growing up. It's been fed, it's been watered, things are looking good. But its journey is far from over, because it's not alone out there in the field. A battle for resources is about to kick off. Welcome to step 5, the fight for survival.
And who's the enemy in this fight? Weeds. It's a simple definition, really. A weed is just any plant that's growing where it's not wanted. They just pop up naturally, and they start competing for all the same good stuff that our crop needs. So why are weeds such a big deal? Well, it's pure competition. They're stealing the crop's water, its nutrients, its sunlight, even its space to grow. This can seriously stunt a crop's growth. And get this, some weeds can even be poisonous. That's why getting rid of them, a process called weeding, is so important. So, farmers have a few different strategies to fight back against these invaders. Tilling the soil before you even plant helps rip out a lot of weeds before they get a foothold. You can also, of course, just pull them out by hand. Or, when you're dealing with huge fields, farmers can spray special chemicals called weedicides, which are pretty clever. They're designed to kill the weeds, but leave the actual crop unharmed.
So, our crop has won the fight. It survived, it's all grown up, and now we've reached the climax of its journey out in the field. It's time for step 6, the harvest. This is it, the final phase before it starts making its way to our homes.
Harvesting is basically cutting down the mature crop, and traditionally that meant backbreaking work with a tool called a sickle. Then you'd have to separate the grain from the stalk, which is called threshing. But today, oh man, the modern combine harvester is an absolute beast. It's a revolution on wheels. It does everything all at once. It harvests, it threshes, it cleans. The jump in efficiency from this one machine is just staggering. It's honestly what makes feeding billions of people a reality.
The grain is harvested. But hold on, the journey's not quite done. There is one final challenge. The 7th and last step in our playbook. Storage. And I love this other little story from our source material. A kid sees their mom tossing dried neem leaves into a big drum full of wheat. And they're like, why would you do that? Any guesses?
Well, the answer is all about protection. Once you've stored the grain, it's super vulnerable to moisture, to insects, rats, all sorts of tiny microorganisms. If you don't store it right, you could lose an entire season's worth of work. It's heartbreaking. Those dried neem leaves, they're a traditional, all-natural pest repellent. It's a simple, brilliant way to keep the grain safe in people's homes. But, okay, let's scale that final step way up. The absolutely massive amounts of grain coming out of a combine harvester need something a little bigger than a drum with some leaves in it. And that's where these things come in. Gigantic silos and granaries. They're built to protect the huge harvest from pests and moisture, keeping it all safe and sound until it's time to be sent out.
And there you have it. The whole journey, from one tiny seed through all 7 steps of the farmer's playbook. Prepping the soil, sowing the seed, feeding and watering it, protecting it from weeds, harvesting it, and finally, storing it in massive silos ready to feed the world. It is an absolutely extraordinary process.